It started with a Facebook message I almost didn't open. I'd just gotten home from work, still in my button-up and slacks, sweating under the late September heat, and all I wanted was to throw myself on the couch and scroll mindlessly through my phone. I wasn't expecting to see his name, Jordan West, the guy who ghosted me halfway through senior year like we hadn't spent 2 months hooking up behind everyone's backs. The message was simple: "Hey, this might be random, but are you still in Chicago?" It had been 6 years. I stared at it for a solid minute, thumb hovering over the screen. My first instinct was to leave it unread, but curiosity beat out my pride, like it always does. I tapped back. "Yeah, why?" he replied almost immediately. "I'm in town for a few days. Want to catch up?" Catch up? With the guy who once kissed me behind the gym and then spent the next week pretending he didn't know my name? I should have said no. But instead, I typed, "Sure." We met at a small bar downtown 2 nights later. I got there early, naturally. Nerves had me downing half a beer before he even walked in. And when he did, it was like high school all over again. Same confident stride, same messy dark curls, same dimpled grin that could disarm anyone. He was broader now, more filled out, still wearing that cologne I couldn't name but always remembered. "Wow," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "You look good." I scoffed, raising an eyebrow. "You're surprised?" He laughed, eyes crinkling at the corners. "Not at all, just, yeah, you look even better than I remembered." There was a beat of silence. I didn't know how to respond to that. Compliments weren't his thing back then. Not unless we were alone and things were already halfway undressed. "So," I said, deflecting, "what brings you to town?" He took a sip of his beer. "Job interview, architecture firm, big one." "Fancy," I said. "Didn't know you were still doing that." "Yeah. Guess I kinda stuck with it." He paused. "You're doing graphic design now, right?" I blinked. "How'd you know that?" His expression turned sheepish. I may have looked you up a few times." My stomach did a weird flip. We talked for 2 hours. About college, work, our families, how weird it was that we were adults now. He asked questions. Real ones. About my life, my career, my apartment. He laughed at my dumb jokes. He paid the tab, and when we stepped outside, the night air cooler than it had been in days, he lingered. "I've got one more night in town," he said, rubbing the back of his neck the way he always did when he was nervous. "I was thinking maybe we could hang out again, just talk, or something." I hesitated. Then I said, "Sure." He showed up at my apartment just past 8 the next night, wearing a navy hoodie that hugged his arms in a way I definitely noticed but tried not to. I'd spent way too long picking out a t-shirt that said, "Casually chill," instead of, "This is a weird second date with a guy who broke your heart once." I didn't know what this was. Old friends catching up? Something more? He handed me a 6-pack like he remembered what I used to drink. "Still into this stuff?" I nodded, feeling that familiar awkward warmth in my chest. "Yeah, you remembered." Jordan smiled, that soft, almost shy version of it. "I remember a lot. We sat on my couch with beers and a movie we barely paid attention to. At first, it was just small talk. Playlists, weird coworkers, horror movies we both hated. But after a while, the pauses got longer. He'd glance over, hold my gaze a little too long, and I started realizing he wasn't just here to hang out. "So," I said, breaking the silence between scenes, "what really made you message me after all this time?" He looked at me for a second, then set his beer down. "You ever have something sit with you for years?" he asked, his voice quieter now. "Like, something you should have done differently, and it just keeps showing up in your head over and over?" My throat tightened. I didn't respond. "I screwed up," he went on. "Back then. With you." I swallowed hard. "You think?" Jordan winced, but didn't look away. I didn't know what I wanted. I was scared. I told myself it wasn't real because it was easier than dealing with what it meant. I laughed, bitter. You mean it was easier to pretend I didn't exist? Yeah, he said. No excuses, no justifications. Just that one word. That silence stretched out again, thick with things we didn't say. Then he added, I never stopped thinking about you. I don't expect anything. Not forgiveness. Not some second chance. I just needed to say it. I didn't know what to say back. I wanted to tell him to leave, to call him out for how much it hurt back then. But instead, I said the truth. You crushed me. He nodded slowly. I know. I should have told him that wasn't enough, that it didn't make things better. But the thing was, seeing him here, opening up like this, it didn't make the hurt go away, but it did change something. It made me see he wasn't the same guy who disappeared on me 6 years ago. I stood up, not really sure what I was doing. You want to stay a bit longer? His eyes flicked to mine, hopeful. Yeah. We didn't finish the movie. I don't even remember what it was. At some point, we just stopped pretending we were watching and started talking. Not the surface level, small talk kind, the real stuff. Jordan told me about his last relationship, how it ended because he never fully opened up. I told him about the guy the first dated last year who loved the idea of me more than the actual me. Somewhere between the second and third beer, our legs ended up touching. Barely. Just his knee brushing mine. I didn't move. Neither did he. The clock on the wall read 12:42 a.m. when he finally asked, "Can I stay over?" I looked at him. "On the couch?" He hesitated, then said, "Wherever you're okay with." I should have made a joke. Should have said something sarcastic, a defense mechanism to keep it light. But all I did was nod. I've got an extra toothbrush. He followed me to the bathroom. Quiet. A little unsure. I handed him a fresh toothbrush from under the sink, and when our hands brushed, we both paused. "I used to imagine this," he said softly. I looked at him in the mirror. "What?" "Being here with you. Doing normal stuff. Brushing our teeth, sharing a bed." I tried to play it off with a smirk. "Super romantic," he chuckled. "Yeah, I know it sounds stupid. But I'd think about it when I was lying in bed back then, wishing I'd handled things differently." I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because part of me had done the same thing, not just for a few nights after he ghosted me, but for years, wondering what could have happened if he'd just stayed. We both ended up in my room. I turned off the main light, leaving only the soft bedside lamp. Jordan stood by the door for a second, looking unsure again. "You don't have to," I said, giving him an out. "I want to." He got into bed beside me. We lay there for a long time in silence, both of us staring up at the ceiling. Our arms didn't touch, our shoulders didn't brush, but the space between us felt like it was alive. Finally, he shifted, slowly, carefully, and when his fingers grazed the back of my hand, I didn't move away. I turned toward him. Our eyes met, and for a moment, it felt like the world paused. Then, almost a whisper, he said, "Can I?" I didn't let him finish. I leaned in first. The kiss wasn't fast. It wasn't hungry or wild. It was slow, hesitant, like we were both afraid it would vanish if we rushed it. His hand came to rest on my cheek, fingers trembling just a little. And when we pulled back, neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because of anything dramatic. We didn't rush into anything. After that kiss, Jordan just settled back beside me, his forehead resting against mine for a while, breathing steady. We didn't speak. There was nothing to explain, but I lay awake, staring at the ceiling long after he fell asleep. My brain wouldn't shut off. Not because I regretted anything. I didn't. But because I knew this wasn't just some nostalgic one-off, there was something real here. Something we'd never let ourselves explore back when we were younger and terrified. And now he was here, in my bed. Warm, familiar, impossibly close. I kept expecting it to feel wrong, messy, complicated. Instead, it felt right. Still scary, yeah, but quiet, like we were finally letting ourselves breathe. In the morning, I woke up first. Sunlight was already spilling through the blinds, painting golden lines across the room. Jordan was still asleep, turned slightly toward me, mouth parted just a little, one hand half tucked under his chin. I watched him for way too long. Eventually, he stirred, blinking slowly. He looked at me and smiled. Not that cocky smirk from high school, but something softer. "Morning," he mumbled. "Morning." He stretched, eyes still half closed. I forgot what it felt like to wake up next to someone. I rolled onto my side, propping my head on my hand. "Yeah?" "Yeah." He looked at me, more awake now. Especially someone I actually wanted to wake up next to. The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard. I looked away, heart thudding a little too fast. "I don't know what this is," I admitted, "or what it's supposed to be." Jordan shifted closer, resting his forehead against mine again. "I don't either. I just know I don't want to disappear this time." That hit harder than I expected. He left a few hours later, suitcase in one hand, his Uber waiting out front. I walked him down. We didn't kiss goodbye. We weren't there yet, and I think we both knew this wasn't the kind of thing you rush. Before he got in the car, he turned to me. "If I get the job, I'll be back. Permanently." I nodded. "You'll let me know?" He smiled. "You'll be the first." The door closed and the car pulled away. I stood there on the curb for a minute longer, heart tight in my chest. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew this wasn't over. 2 weeks went by. At first, I told myself I wasn't checking my phone obsessively. But I was. Every buzz, every notification, I hoped it was him. But it wasn't. Not at first. I didn't want to admit how much it affected me. We'd only just reconnected. It wasn't like we were anything serious yet. Still, the silence got under my skin. I kept replaying everything, the night on the couch, that kiss, the way he said he didn't want to disappear again. And then he did. Again. By the 10th day, I gave up, trying to rationalize it. Maybe he chickened out. Maybe he'd gone back home and convinced himself it was a mistake. I started trying to put the pieces back where they were before he messaged me, building walls, brushing off concern, telling myself I was fine. I wasn't. Then, out of nowhere, he called. It was a Tuesday. I was on the train home from work, headphones in, mindlessly scrolling, when his name flashed on my screen. My stomach flipped. I answered on the second ring. "Hey," he said, voice a little hoarse, like he hadn't slept much. "Can we talk?" I stepped off at the next stop, heart pounding. "Yeah, what's going on?" There was a long pause. Then, "I got the job." I stopped walking. "You did?" "Yeah, they offered it a few days ago. I was going to call right away, but..." He trailed off. "I don't know, I got scared again." My chest tightened. Scared of what? Of screwing it up. Of starting something with you and messing it up again. I thought maybe it was better to just not. I swallowed the frustration rising in my throat. "So you ghosted me. Again." "I know," he said quietly. "And I'm sorry, I really am. But I'm moving to Chicago. End of the month. I want to do this right." I didn't answer right away. My mind was a mess of relief and annoyance, and something I didn't want to name just yet. He kept going. "I want to see you. Tonight, if that's okay. Or tomorrow. Whatever you want. Just give me a chance to explain." I sat down on a bench, staring at the passing cars. "I'm not going to pretend I'm not still mad," I said. "You don't get to vanish and come back like nothing happened." "I know," he said again. "You can be mad. You can say whatever you want. I just want to see you." I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. Instead, I said, "Come by around 8. I didn't bother tidying up before he came over. If we were gonna do this, it had to be real. Messy dishes in the sink, an unmade bed, half a takeout container still on the coffee table. Real life. He showed up at 8:04, hoodie zipped halfway, hair slightly damp like he'd just showered. Nervous, maybe. His eyes met mine, cautious. "Hey," he said. I stepped aside to let him in. "Hey." We didn't do the small talk thing. He sat on the edge of the couch like he didn't want to assume anything. I sat across from him, one leg tucked under me, arms crossed. Not because I was mad anymore, but because I didn't trust myself to not cave too fast. "I freaked out," he said. "Plain and simple." I didn't interrupt. I thought if I made it official, the move, us, any of it, it would become real in a way I couldn't back out of. And that scared the hell out of me. I nodded slowly. "So instead of facing it, you bailed." "Yeah," he admitted. "I did." There was a pause. I could see it in his eyes. He expected me to kick him out or tell him it was too late. Instead, I said, "I get it." He looked up. "You too?" "Doesn't mean it didn't hurt," I added. "But yeah, I get it." He ran a hand through his hair. "I don't want to run anymore." I studied him for a moment. "So what do you want?" "I want to be here, with you. I want to do it right this time." I didn't answer, not with words. I leaned forward, slow, giving him a chance to meet me halfway, which he did. The kiss was familiar this time, not hesitant or unsure. It felt like something we'd been building to for 6 years. When we pulled back, we were both breathless. He grinned. "So, is that a yes?" I laughed. "It's a start." That night, we didn't rush anything. We ordered food. We curled up on the couch, legs tangled. We watched a movie we both forgot the name of halfway through. And later, when we lay in bed, his hand in mine, the city humming softly outside the window, it felt like the first time. But better. Because this time, we weren't hiding. This time, it was real. 3 weeks later, he moved in. Not with me. He wasn't that bold, but into a small one-bedroom 10 minutes away. It was temporary housing through the firm until he found something more permanent. He called me the night he signed the lease. "Guess I'm officially yours now," he joked. I laughed, even though the words made my chest tighten in a way I wasn't ready to examine too closely. "I'll make sure to send over the rulebook." He came by that same night, showing up with cheap wine and a bag of Thai food. We sat cross-legged on the floor of my living room, the TV playing low in the background, both of us too wrapped up in each other to care. The honeymoon phase, if you could call it that, lasted about a month. And then life started creeping back in. Work deadlines, missed texts, canceled plans. His hours at the firm were brutal. Long nights, weekend shifts, sudden client meetings that threw everything off schedule. I tried to be patient, but there were nights I'd be waiting with dinner already cold, wondering if this was what I'd signed up for. One Thursday night, I finally snapped. He'd promised to come by after work. I even cooked. Cooked, like a real meal. I don't usually do that, but he never showed. No text, no call, nothing. By the time he finally walked in at nearly midnight, I was still awake, sitting on the couch with the lights off and a sinking feeling in my chest. "Hey," he said, dropping his bag, face exhausted. "I'm so sorry. You could have just texted." He froze. "I know, I got slammed. I didn't have a second to..." "You had a second. You always have a second. Even a can't talk now, we'll explain later, would have been better than silence." He looked at me like he didn't know what to say. And honestly, I didn't either. I sighed, rubbing my eyes. "I'm not mad about dinner. I'm mad that this feels like deja vu." He sat down across from me, slower this time. "I'm not disappearing." "It feels like it." Jordan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something I didn't expect. "I've never had something I was scared to lose until now." I blinked. "What?" "I'm trying," he said, voice low. "Even if I'm not doing it perfectly, I am trying. But I get caught up. I slip. And then I panic because I think, if I mess this up, there's no fixing it. My anger didn't disappear. It never does that fast, but something in me softened. I reached for his hand. "I don't need perfect," I said. "I just need you to show up." He nodded slowly, fingers wrapping around mine. "I will," he said. "Even if I mess up sometimes, I'll still come back. Every time." We didn't fix everything that night. Relationships don't work like that, not real ones. But we started having the hard conversations, the ones that make you uncomfortable, that scrape at old wounds and test whether you're actually in this for the long haul. We talked about fear, about expectations, about how both of us were figuring this out as we went, and how neither of us wanted to go back to the way things were before. "I didn't grow up seeing this," Jordan said one night while we were brushing our teeth side by side. "I don't know what it looks like. Two guys, just living life together." I spat into the sink. "Yeah, me neither." He looked at me through the mirror. "So what do we do?" I shrugged. "We figure it out." And we did. Slowly. We started spending weekends together. Sometimes at his place, sometimes at mine. Grocery runs turned into mini adventures. Sunday mornings became our thing. Coffee, silence, legs tangled under a blanket on my tiny couch. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't even always exciting, but it was ours. One night, we got caught in the rain, walking back from the grocery store, no umbrella, soaked to the bone. We were both laughing, jackets clinging to our skin, plastic bags swinging at our sides. And when we got to my building, standing under the awning dripping water, Jordan just looked at me, that stupid lopsided grin of his, and said, "I don't want this to be temporary." My breath caught. "I don't want to go back to waking up alone," he said. "I want all of it. The dumb grocery runs, the fighting over who left the cap off the toothpaste, the late nights, and the slow mornings. I want you." I didn't say anything for a second, just looked at him, chest tight. Then I said, "Okay." He blinked. "Okay? You're moving in, aren't you?" Jordan laughed, the sound warm and breathless. Yeah, I am." That was the moment we stopped dancing around it. We were building something real, something fragile and beautiful and completely ours.